Good bouldering morning, good bouldering afternoon, and good bouldering evening. Welcome to November 2024 Bouldering, where I do a lot of bouldering. This month, I did a lot of bouldering and then bouldered some more. After getting back into the groove of things after returning from France, I started to get obsessed with bouldering, and a lot of my focus just went into that. I would say it started back in October, and now it's progressed into this month where it's at its most severe. I go climbing 3 days a week, every week this month, so there's a lot to write about. My memory will fail me here because there's so much to write about, and therefore some of the days may have gotten mashed together. But I do have my journal and clips on my phone to help me, though I still didn't record that many videos. Starting with the second, I was able to bring over one of my other friends to the climbing gym and pretty much just hang out. I don't think much of this session was about doing hard climbs, and instead it was just more of showing him around the gym and teaching him the basics of bouldering, though he already knew a small bit because he had to go bouldering one time when I was in France back in October. I actually have no idea what climbs we did. I think we went to the corner of the back wall to have a look at some of the easier climbs there, but that may have been part of the warm-up. I still don't know. Nothing about that day was documented in any of my journals, which actually sucks. Unfortunately, that's all I have for the second. Script writing me is kind of miffed. On the 5th, I went on my own, and this time I used my climbing journal. Yippee. I also recorded some videos of the climbs I did. Yippee! This was also the time where I started to slightly extend my warm-ups, starting in late October when I was just having a go at doing some static and dynamic stretches. But it was probably just leg swings and finding a way to warm up my calves. Maybe I had to try doing hip flexes, but I think I found that too awkward. Before I talk about stuff in the journal, there was this one problem I was trying to do right next to the one I journaled about later after attempting this. I was trying to do this one purple problem in my warm-up, and I think it was graded a 3. It seemed like it was going to be very simple because it was a grade 3, but it was actually quite difficult because the problem kind of forced you to compress and clump the entire body together to progress forward. The feet were also kind of funky. I don't even know how that problem was graded a 3 because I never topped it. The hardest part was that pair of pinches just before the top hold, and the reason why is because you have to grab it coming from the right side, and then you need to somehow move yourself to the left of those holds in order to grab the top hold. I had no idea how to do it, so I never ended up topping it. I don't know how many attempts I did on that, but it was probably a decent amount. Moving on to where I now have the journal in. While I was doing the purple one on the side, I'd watch people try to do the orange one just to the left whenever I was resting and thinking about how I would do the purple one. And whoever was trying to do the orange one was struggling because they were just a bit too short and they had to do a tiny little jump to get to the next hold. But it was kind of a difficult move because you would have to be in a kind of twisted position, so it was never a good jump. I saw that and I thought that there must be an easier or better way to do it. But when I went to have a try at that problem, I couldn't find an alternative. If you were short, you had to do the jump thing. I didn't have to do the jump because I was just a bit taller, so I could reach for the next hold and I would be good. But grabbing that one hold wasn't the entire challenge. After that, you had to get to the top hold, and there weren't really any good feet for that, especially with the way I did it. I don't remember what order I did, but I think on the pair of holds, I would smear the volumes, getting my legs like perpendicular to the face of it for the right tension, and then I would grab the next hold just above those purple pinches. After that, I could grab the foothold on the volume and it was easy tops. I topped it after around 5 attempts. I didn't properly count. Moving on to the next climb. This one was very interesting. I was thinking of a problem to project for a bit, and I landed on this one because it was challenging, but it didn't feel impossible. It was crimpy, not a style of climb I usually do, and the holds aren't easy to keep myself on, but it was manageable. When I started off, I was really confused because I did not know how I was supposed to move after getting to that group of crimps. I later figured it out. The start is pretty cool. I actually figured that out right away, but I don't think that matters anyway. The wall does have a small overhang after the darker part, so the crimps weren't super easy to hold on to, like I said before. This clip is my 4th attempt, so when I got to the blocked hold, I knew what to do in order to move to the right of that group. And it was actually a pretty cool move. Basically what I did was just make the hand swap, but I would put my thumb in that gap, so I was like crab clawing it. But after that, I didn't really know what to do. I did try to move my feet up, and that was the way to go, but I had no idea what I was doing. This clip shows that I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I needed to get higher, but I thought I could just not do that. When I was on the wall, it felt like that next hold was years away, but looking from the mat or my camera, it doesn't. In my 6th attempt, I figured out that I can put my heel on the starting holds, though it did feel kinda weird. Having my heel there doesn't feel the greatest, but my foot had to be somewhere up there, and that was the only way that would do. After getting my heel on that starting hold, I reached up for the next group of holds, but my foot just flew off. I was kinda miffed I fell there, cause I'm pretty sure that group of holds up there are pretty good. They look pretty good. All of my attempts after this one are quite shit, and I gave up after my 8th attempt. I thought I would return to work on this problem on another day, but that never happened. I did have 1 or 2 more goes at it, but I struggled to get my hands on that block crimp. I never ended up topping this, and in my journal for this day, I didn't write about any more climbs. It was likely I went home after that, and that's all for the 5th. On the 7th, I went bouldering on my own again. Most of the time in this session was spent around the cave area doing those problems. I don't have much else to say. Going to the climbs now and some background for what I'm about to talk about. This set has been up for a while now, and this should be its 2nd week, but there are 2 different problems on different parts of the cave wall being red. And at some point, which I'm guessing was when the 2nd wave came around, these 2 holds on the volume were added, connecting the 2 climbs together. This made a grade 3 problem, and I'd been trying to do it in my warm-up, but it was actually kinda hard. When I get to those holds on the volume, I struggle to get my right hand over because it actually feels kinda scary. My body feels very wide when I do that move, so when I have the idea of taking my right hand off its hold, it petrifies me because I feel like I'm going to destroy my shoulder trying to keep myself up on the wall. It's actually not that bad though. I just drop myself to the next hold and make sure my foot is in a good spot. In this clip, I somehow don't make the next move, but I did do it before. In my journal, I actually write that I topped this problem before I recorded it, and I was only recording that video just to have proof that I topped and I know what to do. I topped it in my warm-up after having a go at it many times in previous sessions, so it felt good to finally top it. There's not much to say for this climb other than the fact that it took me a while to top this one. It's not a very complicated problem. The most complex move is probably that one where I get both my hands on the volume holds. Next climb. It's in the cave again because I said that the day was mostly on the cave wall, so here we are. It's the yellow one and it's graded a 4. I've had a go at this problem before, but I have zero record of it. The start is quite easy and simple. I just move my hands up to each of the holds while shuffling my feet around. And it's a bit annoying how many times I needed to do that though. The hard part is when I get to the overhang part of the climb because the holds suck ass. So I have to use my feet to hook the holds before the ones I'm grabbing, and the hooking is not easy. I don't know if it's because my hooks are weak or if I'm hooking wrong, but it's the latter, as I found out later in the month. The sloper next to my left hand's jug is also really bad. There are so many bad things about this climb, and I also do kind of a nasty fall in this clip, leading it with my elbows. Obviously, I don't top it on this day. For the next one, this one has no journals or video. It's just an image looking at the blue problem. I don't know what the context of this is, but what I do remember is that this was new at the time and I had a go at it. I'm pretty sure it was a bullshit grade 4 or grade 5. I don't remember what part of the session I did this in, but it was either right at the start with my warm-up or near the end when I was too tired of climbing the cave, and it was probably the former. Either way, I went home after having a go at that problem, whether it was immediately or not, and that's all for the 7th. On the 9th, I went with one of my more frequent friends, and I have no idea what the details of the session were. I do know that I was showing off the decoy board to him, and we had to go at some of the easiest climbs that others have set. There were some other things that we did, but I have no idea what the order of events were. Climbing on the decoy board was not easy because the board is at such an angle, at around 45 degrees, and the holds aren't designed for use by a beginner. There are very few jugs on the board, and therefore the rest are just a bunch of crimps of varying sizes and also some pitches and slopers. The climb we mainly had a look at was Approachable Boulder number 1 by Blake Kagan, graded a 4A or V0. Some people think it might be a 4B instead, for reasons I don't know. It was probably just because they found it difficult, which we did also, but I agree with the current grade. The holds used for this set were alright, though there was one hold I always skipped because it was kinda useless. And it was that long, short crimp just above the left starting hold. I didn't properly count how many attempts we did, but it was at least 20, which is quite a bit. The hardest part was definitely the end because I just could not hold the top position with the holds because the right one was so bad, being a sloper kind of thing. You can't just grip the hold like a crimp. It's just like that, yeah. Moving to the left top hold was also a bit of a hassle because I sucked at holding onto crimps. I think I half topped it a few times that session, as in I got my hands on each of the top holds for a small bit a few times, but I could never properly hold the position. I had a few goes on some other climbs on the decoy board afterwards, but I think that was late in the session after my friend had left. That's all about the decoy board. And now onto some climbs that aren't on the decoy board. At some point in the session, I saw my friend having a go at this problem and failing horribly. I saw what he was doing, and I was so confident that what he was doing was just completely wrong. So I had a go at it myself. I flashed the problem, and then I tried to record it so I could have a record of me topping this. But for some reason it was just really hard to get a second top. I do top it at some point, and what he did was definitely not the way to do it. For some reason, he was trying to go for the next hole with his right hand instead of the left like what I do. And for another reason I don't know, I was being kind of silly with my feet because for some reason I thought that I shouldn't use the starting holds for the other problem, because there's actually a second problem which goes up around the corner to a difficult looking top hold. And for the final climb of the day, there was this stupid yellow cave problem that was graded a 4. But it felt a bit on the difficult end of grade 4s, and I've actually talked about this problem before. The start is alright, but it gets really hard once I get past that lower volume because there's so much effort that needs to be put in order to keep myself on the wall. If I ever cut my feet, it's just over because that right hold is a bit like a sloper, so it's just not great to hold on to. It is possible to recover after cutting there, but I've seen it, and I cannot do it. I didn't top it on this day, of course. I didn't, because that climb is stupid hard. I wanted to brush through that because I've already talked about it before. And then after that, I think I did some more stuff on the decoy board before going home. I still don't really remember. I did take some photos of the entire gym at the end of my session because I was actually building it with one of my friends in Minecraft. We still haven't finished it. And that's all for the 9th. On the 12th, I went alone, and I think I was having a look at the new set on the workshop or comp wall. I have no videos to show the climbs that I did, but I have photos. On the rightmost side of the workshop, there's this black grade 3 which had a really interesting start, but it's still quite easy. And then there's the yellow one which was a lot harder. I had a look at both of these climbs with some kids from my school who happened to be there at the same time and day as me. Despite the problem being only 1 grade higher than the black one, it felt like the difficulty gap was larger than that. Most of the problem was pretty easy, but the final move was so hard because I had to do like a crab walk kind of thing to get to the top hold. And I suck at doing coordination moves like that. That's not even the worst part of the climb though. The top hold is actually dual textured, with the smooth part being around the outside of the hold. Or the outside edge. It's really hard to describe. So if I just slap my hand on the hold, there's a chance that my hand will just slip off because the ends of my fingers will be on that smooth part, and therefore will do smooth hold stuff like I said before. I gave up on that problem. I was thinking that I'll have another crack at it later at some point, but that never happened. Part of the reason being that I had a nasty callus. Next, I probably had a small look at that yellow cave problem again, but I didn't make note of it. The other climb I wrote about in my journal was this red juggy problem on the east part of the island, assuming the shop and counter is north. I forgot to write about this one, but it was really simple for being a grade 4. I fell off a few times at the start because I didn't know how to properly grab the holds and volumes to get up. But after looking at it some more with one of the regulars here, I got it easy. There's not much to say about this problem. I went home later, and that's all for the 12th. On the 14th, I went to my own again, and I don't think there were many people there that day. I mainly worked on one single problem, and I wrote about it. Onto the climb now. Right next to the cave roof part, there's this slab climb which is graded a 4, but the ending is kind of bullshit. This image is actually a video, but I can't play it because I couldn't be bothered to get a shirt from home, so I'm just wearing my full school uniform in this session. The holds of this problem are pretty cool. It's just a bunch of pinches, or more like crimps, that I use to slowly walk towards the top hold and also lower myself, which is actually not very easy. As it's a slow climb, or walk, my arms would get quite pumped by the time I got near the top hold. But that also happened to be the hardest part of the climb because you have to do some funky stuff with your feet. I was never able to top it, but you would have to get both of the feet on the volume to the right of the top hold and somehow get the tension right by doing a toe hook maybe underneath. I don't really know. I never knew how I was going to top this problem, but I still wanted to try. I also had this problem where I wasn't really able to close my left hand when I had it on the final pair of pinches. It's because of my physiology, and it kind of sucks, but there are ways around it. At the end of the day, I didn't top it. In my journal, I also wrote that I was in a bit of an agitated mood. I just wasn't feeling great. I do come back to this briefly on another day, but I still never topped it. That's all for the 14th. On the 16th, I went with one of my friends, and the only thing I remember doing was working on that yellow problem on the cave wall again. My journal is absolutely useless here because I wrote the heading for my first climb, but then I wrote nothing after that. I thought I may have looked at the decoy board with him on this day, but I think I just got this day mistaken as the 9th. The first clip I have recorded of that yellow cave problem is one where I failed kind of miserably. At some point, I don't know if it was the session or an early one, probably the latter, but I figured that I could hook my heels on the sideways jog and the pinch kind of thing on the lowest volume, therefore clamping myself more easily to the wall. And after establishing that, I could easily move forward to the next holds and not have my feet cut loose. Even doing that, it's a bit difficult to move forward because it's quite a dynamic move. In my next recorded attempt, I was able to get the clamp down this time, but I wasn't able to successfully progress from there. I would have given up working on this a little bit after this. And still on the cave, but a different problem, which is the orange one. I think it's graded a 3? Don't know, don't remember. But if you choose to campus the entire climb, all the way to the top, at the tippy top, that would make a grade 5. My friend and I tried having a go at it because it was probably going to be the first grade 5 we would top if we had to do one. We didn't get very far though because it's a grade 5 and those aren't easy. And so is campusing all the way to the top of the cave wall without swinging around too much. It's pretty easy to grab all the holds and do the first few moves because they're just jugs that are also close together. But when I have to start moving up, it just becomes impossible for me. I never fully gave up on that yellow cave problem yet. I knew I was going to try again another day, but my memory says nothing else, and that's all for the 16th. On the 19th, I went with a different friend. What did we do? Did some bouldering, of course. I also got to do some pull-ups for the first time in my warm-up because all the training equipment had finally been installed into the gym's training room. It was lit, and it looked pretty cool. I forgot I wrote that. I think it was a pretty rough day on the 19th because I was kind of tired, and my friend left surprisingly early, probably less than an hour after we arrived, so it was basically just back to schedule from that point. I didn't record any clips. The first climb I wrote about was green and a grade 4 at the turn past the back wall. I thought that I would try to project this problem because it seemed just challenging enough that I could top it with enough effort. The problem with that though was that it was going to get reset the next week for a good set. But I don't think anything much notable got out there. The problem has a simple start, but I got stuck pretty quickly when I was trying to figure out how to stand up from the pair of crimps because putting my feet around the volumes there isn't great. I tried swapping my feet on this foothold on a somewhat low volume, and it was so hard. Even trying to continue the climb from that point was difficult because the higher volume would block my legs, so I couldn't hold it upright. I also don't think I could have stepped on the volumes because I tried that when I was on the wall, and they're steep enough that I can't just walk on it, side on at least. I moved on from that after around 14 attempts. After moving on from that climb, I went to the pink slab, wrote the heading in my journal, and then wrote nothing after that. I got down 2 tallies for attempts, and I'm assuming I topped it after those 2 attempts because I actually did top it on this day. I did take the beta from someone else, and that was so much easier than what I tried to do before. I didn't record a video, but I did do that on another day, and that's all for the 19th. On the 21st, I went bouldering with another different friend. We spent most of our time looking at a single grade 2 problem before he had to go home to help his dad with something or something like that. It was kind of interesting how even a problem as easy as a grade 2 can be taken on with such depth. I was teaching him the beta of the problem and that was it. After he left, I went to do some climbing on the cave wall, hoping that I would finally top the yellow one after many attempts. In this recorded attempt, I got near the end quite easily, but I think my climbing here was a bit janky, especially when I chose to forget to hook my heel on that volume hold like I would always do. I knew that clamping myself down onto those holds works well, and if I did do that, my feet definitely would not have cut. Obviously, it's possible to just brute your way through that and actually recover from cutting the feet there, like how it's possible to recover from the holds before the ones I fall out here. Again, it was a bit annoying how I was pretty close to topping the problem when I could have just put my heel in. After many attempts, I was finally able to top the problem, or at least get both of my hands on the top hold, because I kind of stretched myself out a bit because I keep both of my heels on those holds the entire time. And the further I go out with my hands, the more my legs will swing when they inevitably cut. I think I tried to top it again on this day, and maybe the day after, but that would never happen. I was still glad I got both my hands on it though. That's a top in my book. I wrote that I was quite tired after I topped it and tried repeating it. I'm guessing I went home after this because I don't remember anything of this day afterwards. And that's all for the 21st. On the 23rd, I wrote the warm-up in my journal, and then wrote nothing after that because I was with some friends the entire time. One of them was my friend's friend, and it was pretty much my first time meeting them, though we had briefly met a couple of weeks prior. He's a pretty good climber. I would say he's as good as I am. This was also the day where I recorded the video of myself topping that pink slab on the back wall. And I'll start with that one first. I'm so mad that I didn't pick up on this beta when I was first doing it because after seeing how easy this is, I feel like a fool. I didn't need to do any foot swaps or funky palming on the dual text pocket holds. I just had to get my foot all the way to the rightmost foot hold and do a silly looking movement to swap my hands on the crimps before matching the top hold. This recording was actually to show how it was done because I think one of my friends there was wondering how I did it, though I swear they topped before me. I might be getting them confused for someone else though. But now I can show that I actually topped it. Before recording that problem, we had a crack at doing this blue wildcard grade slab on the south wall of the island. The way I started it in this clip is not normally how I would start it, but it made avoiding doing an easy foot swap possible and also helped shave off a bit of time. We kind of spent a decent amount of time on this problem already, or I have at least. I think this set hadn't been up for a long time though. If this problem wasn't a wildcard grade, I'd probably say it would have been a grade 4 or a 5 for how difficult the ending is. The rest of the climb is really easy, it's just the second final move that's super hard because it's just a thumb swap that you must always have the finger on because the volumes, not talking about the standing hold, are horrible for walking on because they're on a weird angle and they're also kind of short. It's a really hard move. I have no idea how many people have topped it. I do remember being around when someone did top it, but I never saw how they did it. And I also never ended up topping that one. I have no idea what we did after having a look at those two problems. We most likely went to the cave and had another crack at that yellow cave problem. I could be wrong, but I don't remember. And that's all for the 23rd. On the 26th, there was a new set on the back wall, and it was a pretty cool set. Mainly on the rightmost side where that pink pockety problem was. I used my journal this time, and I wrote about a decent amount of climbs. I wrote about 4 climbs in total today, but climbs 2 to 4 were kinda quick-fire ones. The first climb was this short looking one which I thought was graded a 3 or a 4, but I have no idea how I thought it was a 4 because it's a pretty simple looking problem as it is. I don't top it in this clip, but I did top it later on my 6th attempt. The start can look really confusing for people who might be new to climbing because some may think they would have to hang off the hold or do something else weird. With the way I did it, some may still think that might not be the way because I had to move my leg medially a lot in order to get the foot on the wall to keep stable. And I don't know how else I can describe that movement other than using, what's it called, biomechanical terms, so deal with it. Getting up is simple and I don't want to describe that, but the ending is a bit strange because the hold is just a really small dish thing that you literally cannot grab onto. So I had to find a way to be perfectly balanced and match the top hold. I spent some time trying to figure out how to get that match, and the annoying thing is that I'm pretty sure that's the highest I can stand at. It's impossible to get any higher. That bit might actually be a lie though, because when the second wave came around, the top hold actually got moved to the right by quite a bit because I think tall people were just breaking the beta and not doing it the way you were meant to, or how the setters made it. But yeah, I wasn't able to hold that match, but I got both of my hands up there numerous times, so I just counted that as topping it. I never said it, but it got the wildcard grade after the second wave came around. There were some other climbs I did in between that purple one and this next one, or these, but they won't matter. Climb number 2 was a black slab, no hand slab. And it was so easy because I was quite familiar with how to balance. It took me 6 attempts because I somehow got stuck with stepping on that third hold since I wasn't anticipating there being a drop, which felt more dramatic than it looks. There was also something to do with the angle there. I don't know. I thought this problem was graded a 3 because it was no-handed and no-hand slabs aren't super easy. The third climb I have in my journal is the blue one on the same wall, and I flashed it. It was so much easier than the black one. Even though it's got smaller footholds than the black one, those footholds are still really good. And I have no video of this, so I'm moving on. The final climb I wrote about is on the same wall as the previous 2, and it's harder than the previous 2. I thought it was graded a 4 because I found it really difficult. I don't remember how I tried to climb on this problem on this day. This one seems really simple with the footholds looking big and boldish, but they're those kind of slopey ones and they're also really close together. I did at least 6 attempts on this before giving up. I was on that wall for a while and then I went home. I knew the order of difficulty of those problems were blue, black, orange, then yellow because I'd seen it myself and many other people were echoing that idea. And that's all for the 26th. On the 28th, I was back on the back wall, doing those no-hand slabs again and also having a look at the problems I hadn't tried yet. I saw some familiars and looked at that orange slab climb with a person who I basically flexed my balance on while doing my warm-up climbs. And I sound like a dickhead now that I read that out and aloud. Again, I didn't record any videos of the climbs I did, but I did take photos, and I may have used one of them for the 26th. The first climb we looked at, after warming up on the easier slabs, was a white ladder looking but isn't problem just to the left of the no-hand slabs. I saw a bunch of people doing this on the 26th, so the beta for the start was kind of spoiled to me. I would try to not watch people climb on it, but it was hard to do that when the problem was right next to the slabs I was doing. I guess that it was a grade 3, even though a good amount of people appeared to struggle on it despite it being quite short. A lot of people would try to go for the top hold with their left hand, therefore making the move a bit more dynamic than it should be. It's a lot easier to approach with the right hand, even though it might feel scarier because that's partly what's keeping yourself to the wall, pulling on that high hold. The climb before that is quite easy because all that needs to be done is flagging at the start hold, stand up, step a bit, get the right hand on the highest hold before the top hold, get the left foot on the highest starting hold, rock over a bit, and then go for the top hold and match. It feels like an ugly top because it's still textured, but past that, it feels good in combination with the volume giving it a better angle. It'll seem a lot more simpler if I got a recording of it. After that white problem, I went back to the slabs and tried tackling the orange one. It was surprisingly more difficult than how it looks. It's not even easy to start. I have to get a foot on a hold, then jump up and not be on the edge of falling off because I have to match the starting hold to actually get started. I later figured that I can toe hook the bottom of the volume, and that helped a lot with making the start bearable. Moving from the start still isn't easy because I have to do very small steps and slowly shift my weight from one leg to another multiple times in order to progress forward. The worst part is that I can't look down to see what I'm stepping on. So when I'm trying to transfer my weight, I'm just hoping that my foot is at the right spot, though it does become second nature at some point after doing it many times. Grabbing the top hold was probably the most frustrating part of the climb though, because it always happened to be smooth, so my fingers would just slip off and that threw me off every time. I did eventually top it after many attempts, and I lost count, but it felt good. For the grade guessing, this time I was considering that I could be a 3 instead of a 4, and that would mean the guesses for the easier slabs would go down a grade if I were to lock that in. I couldn't really imagine the blue one being a grade 1 though, because no hand slabs aren't easy, and so was the orange one. I was hoping that the yellow one would be graded a 5 because that would mean I would have a chance at topping it and it being my first grade 5 top. That should be all for that climb and that wall. And that's all for the 28th. On the 30th, I was so knackered and my guesses of grades for a decent amount of problems were wrong. It was also raining that day and I still chose to ride my bike to the gym. I didn't think the rain would be that bad, but it really was because my pants got soaking wet and I had to borrow a pair from the lost property tub. I have no idea how someone lost their pants though. Now onto the grade reveal. On the corner, the green one with the bat hang, which I don't think I ever showed before, was a grade 4 instead of a wild card. The no hand slabs were graded a 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the blue, black, orange, and yellow problems. I was a bit miffed that the yellow one wasn't a 5, but it was also good because it meant that it may be more possible than what I thought. Some of the climbs got tweaked, mostly that random easy yellow one I never mentioned, and also the purple and white ones, which I thought would be graded a 3. They were both tweaked and given the wildcard grade. The white one is still easy, the end was just extended a bit, and they also changed the hold on the top of the volume to a dual texture volume looking thing. For the change to the purple wildcard problem, the top hold was just moved to the right, and I've said that before. In my journal, I wrote fuck all again because like I said before, I was so knackered. I think I was trying to top the orange slab again because I wanted to see if I could do it again. I don't think I did top it on this day though. I actually don't remember. I wasn't in the gym for as long as I would usually stay for. Trying to climb while being super tired wasn't worth it, so I just called it off. And that's all for the 30th. I did so much bouldering, which resulted in me writing this super long script. I didn't think I was going to be able to keep up with such a routine while still going to school and dealing with a small bit of homework, which I suck at doing. But I definitely loved doing it, and that's why I kept going 3 times a week for many weeks. It kind of started in late October, and it still carries over to January 2025, where I'm still keeping that consistent. 13 days in November did turn into 12 days in December because there was a little disruption in the middle of the month, which I'll talk about in more detail on December's video. The new slabs were really cool, I liked it, and so did I with climbing throughout the entire month. I'm actually so glad up climbing opened up. But that's the end of November 2024 bouldering. Time to start writing December 2024 bouldering. It's kind of a lie because I've already done it. But yeah, goodbye.